I've decided to do a blog post about the Kolomoisky case, which I've been attending this past week. I went twice, and I think it's quite funny that there aren't that many people talking about it, in particular in the UK media. The Ukraine flag has been flying over Number 10 for the best part of 2 years, and we have an impeachment process which is starting to get underway in America in relation to Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden's business interests. Hunter Biden was on the board for about 5 years of a company called Burisma, which was owned in part by somebody called Ihor Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky owned a bank called PrivatBank, which he had taken off him around 2016. The auditors of PrivatBank were PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, the English accounting company, and their audit was regarded as absolutely fine until 2015. And then suddenly the Ukrainian central bank said that they wanted to take the bank, to nationalize the bank. They said that PwC's accounts were not properly done, and PwC were expelled from Ukraine. The London case alleges that Mr. Kolomoisky and his co-defendants, somebody called Balyubov and a few other co-defendants, laundered 1.9 billion, which is now missing. There are other cases in Cyprus and in Ukraine, and Kolomoisky is now in jail in Ukraine. He's had his nationality stripped of him, but he also owned the media company that made the program that made Zelensky famous. So Zelensky and Kolomoisky are business partners. These allegations were made against Kolomoisky before Zelensky became president, and Zelensky worked with him anyway and became president. So when people try to say that Ukraine is not a corrupt country, they're obviously not correct. But also when people try to say that Zelensky himself has clean hands, that's also completely ridiculous. So Zelensky is now officially moving against Kolomoisky, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, if he was prepared to do business with someone who had so many allegations against them, then what kind of a person is he? And if you consider the fact that $100 billion of US money has gone to Ukraine in the last couple of years to fund the war, then what is this all about? And why is it that nobody's focusing on the case? Now, to the case itself, I attended twice. I saw Kolomoisky's barrister trying to say to the PrivatBank, which again is the name of the bank that he used to own, which has now been nationalized. He said to the PrivatBank accountant, can you prove which money was stolen? Because you've accused my client of stealing money. So can you tell me exactly which money was stolen on what date? And I didn't get the impression that the PrivatBank accountant was able to actually just point to money that was missing. On the other hand, the couple of days afterwards, I saw Kolomoisky's accountant being cross-examined by the PrivatBank barrister, and the barrister basically said, I disagree with you, and implied that there was a difference in the models that were being used by the various accountants in order to assess what had been going on at the bank. That's roughly all that I was able to see. I did ask PrivatBank for a copy of the accounting reports that PrivatBank had produced, in which they were able to say that Kolomoisky had stolen the money, but PrivatBank wouldn't let me see it. So I think it's quite strange that in London courts, cases are being heard, and the case it hinges on evidence that's being produced by accountants, so by experts, and that evidence is not something that people who are visiting the court case and are taking a special interest in it are able to look at. So let's say either party wins, none of us are really going to know what the evidence was or what the arguments were, because everything's being prevented from being scrutinized both in the court and, of course, outside the court, because the case was reported on as happening when it started, but there's been no daily updates. There you go. That's the reason why I think it's interesting. As I said, Biden's son was in receipt of $5 million from Kolomoisky's company Burisma, and the person who set up Burisma was originally investigated by the Serious Fraud Office in 2014. And that was exactly the same time, April 2014, as Biden Jr. went onto the board. I believe US officials found this very difficult to understand, And they would have preferred that Biden Jr. had not gone on the board because they themselves were investigating Burisma. And it looks like people higher up the food chain, such as Joe Biden, have effectively done damage limitation for Burisma because the son was on the board. So it does look highly corrupt, the fact that Hunter Biden took all this money from a company that was run by oligarchs who are now being prosecuted for money laundering in America, Cyprus, through Israel, the UK, and of course, Ukraine.